Hello, I'm Dr. Tyson Furr. This is the Therapy Bunny. All things psychology. HeraldSquarePsychology.com. Herald Square, like where Macy's is in New York City, where my New York office is. And therapist, the number 4.jp. Therapistforme.jp, because I'm in Japan right now. And I'm here to talk today about panic and what to do. So there you are, you're just minding your own business. You might just be on the train or at an office or something like that, and all of a sudden you start to feel lightheaded and dizzy, and maybe you feel like you can't breathe, and all of a sudden your heart starts to beat, and then you start freaking out thinking like, oh my god, I'm having a heart attack, or I'm gonna die. And maybe things get a little fuzzy in your vision, and you'll have like tingling or other bodily sensations that are strange, or things like your vision can go out, or things seem unreal, or like you're in a dream or outside of your body. And like the scariest part is feeling like you're going to die and you got to call 911. And I've had many clients run off to the doctor in the emergency room only to find out that there's absolutely nothing wrong with them physically. They had a panic attack. And panic, it's one thing to say like, well, you list all these symptoms, like, you can go to the DSM, the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual for Mental Disorders, according to the American Psychiatric Association, and list off these symptoms. It's another thing to actually feel like you're gonna die. It's sort of like, oh, she's just depressed, or oh, she's just stressed. Well, my goodness, try and jump in the skin of the other person and see what that's like. It's a heavy thing to think that you're dying. It's really scary. The good news is your panic is harmless, treatable, and you don't have to live this way. So let's take a little bit to talk about the different types of panic, and then I'll tell you what to do. Okay? So, I just listed a number of symptoms. There's more. You can Google this stuff. But those are the big ones. Those are the ones that really get you. And then a lot of times one of the symptoms is they feel like they're going to pass out. Now, almost always that's just a feeling. There are some people who actually are called vasovagal responders, and they will get low blood pressure and they will pass out. So safety first. And that's true with anything in life, safety first, okay? So if you actually did pass out, then that's something that's really important for you to know, so that you can prepare for the next time to make sure that you sit down and you secure your position before you actually pass out. But if you feel like you're going to pass out and you never do, you're fine. You're not going to pass out. There's also cued and uncued panic, and panic can come from out of the blue, unfortunately. Like for no good reason. You could just be like having a great time and all of a sudden feel like you're about to die. It's really unpleasant. But there's also cued. And by cued, I mean that something comes along and freaks you out. Like you open up a letter and there's some bad news in there, financial, health, or maybe your friend or relationship is in some sort of jeopardy, or something comes along that's really jarring, and it starts a panic attack. And again, it's harmless, but it doesn't feel that way. And my heart goes out to everybody who's going to go through panic in the near future. There's things you can do about it. And that's an important thing that I would like to really stress, is the way you respond to this is really important. A lot of people start taking benzodiazepines like Xanax and other kinds of drugs. And the problem is once you start tinkering with your biology, sure, there's a symptom reduction, but there's a price to pay, because not only are there side effects, but you can get really addicted to these medications, and withdrawal can be dangerous sometimes. So we want to be careful to recognize that the pills are not necessarily an easy fix. They can have unintended consequences. They can create dependency. They're expensive. And a good range of mental difficulties, emotional difficulties, social difficulties, just talking. There's something about saying it out loud to another person, apart from just the psychoeducation you can get on these things. Like, I'm being very psychoeducational right now. But like with things like moderate depression, psychotherapy can help you with this, and you don't need to get addicted to these drugs. So anyway, the prevailing intervention for panic, it comes from CBT, cognitive behavioral therapy. And what happens is their explanation of it, which I think holds some water, is that people get really anxious. And when you get anxious, your body starts mobilizing things into your body, whether it's hormones or activation of kind of like a survival mode, and your body physically reacts to it. Like your heart starts beating, you start breathing like more shallowly, you feel more tense. And then what happens is your brain senses that it's anxious, and then the next part is that it interprets the bodily symptoms as dangerous, right? That like a beating heart is dangerous. Well, we do all sorts of things to make our hearts beat faster, watch movies, have sex, exercise, whatever it is. It doesn't necessarily mean that the symptom is dangerous. It could be quite benign, and a lot of the people that go to the ER figure that out because the doctors just tell them, like, this is all in your head, like there's nothing wrong with you. Again, safety first. My degree is not medical. It's a PhD in clinical psychology, so that doesn't give me the latitude to comment on medical things outside of the parameters that a psychologist can. So I'm not going to comment on the safety and symptoms of fast heartbeats, but I can talk about panic. So the CBT says that people perceive benign bodily symptoms as dangerous, and then all of a sudden that ups the ante with the anxiety, which ups the ante with the shortness of breath, and then that's when people really start to panic. And the idea then is to educate them about what these symptoms are, what their experience is, and to be able to recognize these bodily symptoms as part of the panic process and identify them from your history. Maybe you went to the ER, or maybe you've gone through this before, or maybe you know what it is, and realize that if you can respond to the situation rather than react to it, then you stand a good chance of getting through the panic attack. Now, once you have the panic attack, nothing's going to change it. It's your panic attack. You're going to keep it for about 20 minutes, and it's going to be very unpleasant and very painful, but it's harmless, right? But once you have it, once it's initiated, it's too late. So then the CBT people, what they want you to do then is they want you to look at these symptoms and then test the hypothesis mentally and undistort your thoughts. Try and talk you out of your thoughts and feelings, which is like, have I gone through this before? Yes. Was it benign? Yes. Was it a panic attack? Yes. Am I safe? Yes. And then hopefully if you can do that kind of thing, like identify the symptoms, understand the symptoms, and respond to them in a well-mannered and measured way, then you can prevent the trigger of the full-on panic attack that'll take you away for the next 20 minutes. And again, this is all harmless. Now, safety first, go to your doctor, make sure you're healthy, make sure there's no other symptoms. But if it is indeed a panic attack, this is the case. I think that's what we know that's worth imparting to you at this point. There is something that I'd like to bring up, and hopefully some researcher out there is going to be looking at this, because I'm in private practice and more of a business person and a therapist now than a researcher. But I have noticed that when sometimes people come up with these like surprising panic symptoms, like I had a client come in and they had splotches on their necks, like red splotches. That was part of their symptoms. And it turns out that this person got these symptoms when sexist people in a business environment were objectifying her, and she was a fighter. She was not, like a little kitten that would roll over and take it. However, she was in a situation where she couldn't respond like the way she wanted to, which is she basically wanted to tear him a new one. But she couldn't. She had to keep it together. And so what happened was that she had a panic attack. So there's this idea of an impulse, because this person came from a history of taking care of business physically. But I've noticed it in all sorts of other clients where they have a well of anger underneath their panic that's unacknowledged. And I think it's worth examining that if you are getting these panic attacks, is there an impulse to be angry and a counter impulse to keep it in check? Because that might be the source of the panic. Now, that's just my personal opinion. I do not have evidence to back that up other than experience. But experience is not good enough for a scientific postulation that backed up by evidence. It's observation, and that's not enough evidence to come down here and thoroughly say that that's something that you should hang your hat on. However, it's starting to look that way, and that's something to consider. Having said that, I would go back, and if I were you and experiencing panic, the first step, make sure you're healthy. The second step, educate yourself. There's a tremendous amount of resources online about this, but also go to a therapist once you've been medically cleared, and go through the CBT, the exercise of learning how to catch these things that say like say 100 is a total panic attack and 0 is perfectly calm. And there's ways of coming up with this scale. I'm not going to do it here, but just for argument's sake, let's say you can catch it at a 20, then you don't have to go to 100. You don't have to go through all of that discomfort, because, in life, pain is inevitable, but suffering is optional. And if you try and fight the fact that you're anxious, you're going to wind up more anxious longer and more intensely. Whereas if you can catch it and you can say, okay, I'm anxious right now, and let that ride out at a 20, that's a whole different ball game than writing it out after going to 100, and you don't need to do it. So I hope you found this helpful. And if you want to learn more, please go to my channel. I really loathe saying like and describe and hit the bell and all that stuff. It just feels wrong, because my intention is to help and not promote. However, I think one of the side effects of doing these videos is trying to drive people to services, which is helpful. Having said that, this has been Dr. Tyson Furr, all things psychology. The channel is called Bunny Therapy for a reason I put on the channel. It's actually multi-layered and not just cutesy. And I wish you all better mental health.